Retro Care back again. Sorry it's been such a long time. Unfortunately, lost my mum a few weeks before Christmas, so obviously that really put a spanner in the works for a lot of things. And I wasn't going to be making YouTube videos or anything soon after that. But yeah. But anyway, I'm back now, and at the end of the last video, the Spectrum video, I said I'd do one on the PlayStation One, and the same idea, the games that really tick that nostalgic box, the games that when you play them they take you back to the time when the PlayStation 1 was out, and it was a fantastic console. And to cut a long story short, I moved on from the Spectrum quite quickly, and I bought an Atari 800 XL. I don't know why I went that way, but I did. And but I love that computer. I used to play a game called Rescue and Practice a lot, which is a great game. But anyway, I eventually moved that on, and I bought an Amiga 500. And the Amiga 500, you know what, you could write a book on the Amiga 500. In fact, many books would have been written on the Amiga 500. But again, I moved on from there, and sort of I was a lad in my 20s. I was sort of going out with mates and stuff like that, and I sort of drifted out of gaming again. Somewhere along the line, I obviously heard about the PlayStation. Whether it was on the news, it was being talked about or written about in a magazine, but it was making big waves. So I was working obviously, and I thought, I'm gonna treat myself and have a look what this is all about, the PlayStation. And how happy I am that I bought the PlayStation, because to me at the time it really was an upgrade. It felt an upgrade. It had been a while since I'd been gaming, and the games seemed that much grander, cinematic, and obviously a lot faster loading and stuff like that. We're using CD type discs then, and everything just seemed better about it. And I was in hook, line, and sinker. I was in for it. Brilliant. So let's get on with the games that I chose. Obviously, you saw the thumbnail, so we'll start with that one. We'll start with Die Hard. I really enjoyed this game.
Yeah, so what a crackingly entertaining game Die Hard was. Now, in this first area, I did struggle a little bit. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but it was just tough for me because I've got a really bad sense of direction. So I'd enjoy all the shooting parts of it, but then with the time constraint of getting to the bomb at the end and my sense of direction, I wouldn't always make it, but it was great fun. Now, this was my favourite out of the three. I really used to love this area. It was just a really good shoot 'em up. It was just so well done. The weapons you could pick up, a little quiet little bit of music at the start of this area before everything kicked off. It was just really, really well made. And the other thing is, I'll show you in a second, that you could get these little codes in magazines where you'd put them in via the controller. As you can see, I've gone all Ray Harryhausen and I've put in, the code that made everybody skeletons, and it was just really weird. I'll put those at the end if anybody wants to play Die Hard again. There's some really funny codes you can put in. Now, this is the third area, obviously the third film when you had to find the bombs. Now, I must admit I struggle on driving games, so I sort of found it tough, but that's when you know something's good, where even though I find driving games tough, I still really enjoyed playing this area. It was really brilliant.
Die Hard, yeah, many a night playing that. It was a good game you could just play for sort of 10-15 minutes if you just wanted a quick blast or something. Great fun. Next one I'm going to do is another fun game, and it's a fighting game. It's Tekken 2.
Now, I must admit, I'm not fantastic. A bit like the driving games, I'm not fantastic at fighting games. But there was something about Tekken 2, I mean, especially the way it was presented. Everything was very cinematic. You'd see all the different players, their different characters, different outfits they wore. And you know what? It really presented itself well. And the other thing is, I found out about Tekken 2 on a demo when I bought another game. And that was quite common, I think. You'd buy a game and it would have a little demo disc in there of games that were going to come out in the future. And I'm certain that's how I found out about Tekken 2. And once I played the sort of demo, I really wanted to play the game. So I definitely went out and bought it. The other thing is, I think, as I said, I struggled at fighting games, but there was just something about Tekken 2 that was more doable for someone like myself. Whether it just gave you that split second more time to find the move, but it would just seem doable to me. And eventually I did manage to complete Tekken 2, and I spent a lot of nights playing Tekken because it was a game you could just put on a 15-minute blast. And obviously it went on to be a really successful series in fighting games, so I think a lot of people must have felt the same, really.
Tekken 2, yeah, another fun game. As I said there, I wasn't the best sort of at fighting games, a bit of a button masher, but that particular game, I used to like it a lot. But anyway, let's move on. Next one on my list is Driver, with its infamously tough tutorial.
And I'm going to start with that super tough tutorial because I managed to do it again a few days ago. But back in the day, when I bought the game, I just couldn't do it. I struggled and struggled, really frustrating, a lot of game rage. And I had friends and people I knew who'd say, "What's all the fuss about? It wasn't that hard." But I just couldn't do it. But about 9 months ago, I sort of put driver in again, and I thought I'm going to have a go at that tutorial. But I managed it, and a few days ago I did it again. So this is the footage you're watching here, and I suddenly realised, God, it wasn't that tough, but it was tough for me back in the day. But anyway, the thing is, once you got past the tutorial, Drive was a really good game. You played Tanner, the Maverick cop, and you had to go on these, these missions for these sort of hoodlums because you were sort of undercover and making your way up to the bigger boss, really, which was the point of the game. But I also, the other things, I read that, the sort of a little bit later GTA games, apparently they took a lot from this game. And when you watch it, you can really see, that they did take a lot from this game. The sort of driving mechanics, the way the games worked, they definitely took a little bit from this. But, I enjoyed Driver a lot. And here you see me driving. That car was a little bit like the Starsky and Hutch one for me. But yeah, my driving was never the best. Now, I didn't introduce this one because for me, the music introduces the game itself. The music they wrote for Tomb Raider, the ambient sort of feel to the music, it really drew me in. Now, I'm a big fan of sort of ambient, sort of chilled music, and it works so well with Tomb Raider. As you can see here, it was a tutorial again, but you know what? The thing is, with these PlayStation games, they'd become bigger. And really, you had to do these tutorials. The game had to find a way to train you up because you would really need these skills in the game if you were going to progress. But once you were in the game, Tomb Raider, it was a very special game. Now it really had a feeling of isolation. The way they did the echoes and the chambers, you really felt Lara Croft was on her own and you were there with her. Now I used to play late at night, lights down, just me sat by the TV, and you were really engrossed. The hours would fly by, and you were just with Lara herself. Now, Lara, a very special character, she was a quintessential English woman, and everybody fell in love with Lara Croft. And it's really no surprise that there went on to be loads of sequels and films because there was something so special about it. I mean, you can see the graphics here. This obviously isn't remastered because everybody's talking about the remasters, but this is just the original, and it looked pretty good. And the thing is, it was so cinematic. Everything felt grand, and as I say, I used to while away the time. I used to, get home from work, have me dinner, and I'd look forward to playing a game like Tomb Raider. It would just take me right in, and I'd find my way around. And it's one of those games I didn't mind getting lost or looking for the treasures because I just enjoyed the whole ambience of the game, the whole feel of the game. And there were some shocks, and as everybody knows, there's the famous scene with the T-Rex, and it could be quite scary at times, but overall, it was just really enjoyable.
So that was Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider for me is always going to be known as a classic. I used to play that way into the night, even though when I used to have to get up for work at 6 o'clock at the time. And, I look at the clock and think, geez, I'm only going to get about 3 or 4 hours sleep here. So that's Tomb Raider. But on to my next one, which is, why I'm wearing this t-shirt, Resident Evil.
Now, for me, Resident Evils are superb. They are my favourite gaming franchise, and everybody remembers this scene from the first game where you see the first zombie. And from this moment, I was suckered into Resident Evil. I just wanted to come across more zombies, more monsters. There was something really engrossing about it. It was very similar to Tomb Raider in that way that you felt very isolated and very on your own. And obviously, this was a more horror-based game, so it's a bit more bloodthirsty, and it was generally quite scary. As you saw the fixed camera angle there, sometimes you could get trapped by the fixed camera angle, and you'd walk in a room, and you'd hear something in the room, and you were generally quite scared. Now, I was like virtually an adult when I was playing the first Resident Evil games, but it really got to me as well. I mean, I'd sort of add to that by playing in the dark, in the quiet, just to make the most of the scary effects. But nonetheless, it was a pretty scary game. Now, all of the first three Resident Evil games on the PlayStation 1 I thought were fantastic, and I would play them night after night. They were just brilliant. I loved problem solving. I loved the puzzles. The puzzles were done just the right balance where they weren't too tough to make you want to give up, but they were tough enough to sort of challenge you, which, yeah, I thought was really clever. And obviously, it's gone on to be a massive franchise now. And to be fair, if they make a Resident Evil game, I'll buy it. I mean, I still get a lot out of them. There's obviously, a few maybe sort of more weaker games in amongst them, but overall, I still love the way the games work. And obviously, they went on to make a series of films. And I must admit, I was a little bit disappointed when the films came out because they just didn't do a good representation of the game itself. But they are what they are, and I must admit, I didn't mind them in the end. They're a bit like popcorn movies, really. But Resident Evil, I can't get enough of Resident Evil. Really, just brilliant.
So that was Resident Evil. I mean, what more can you say? For me, particularly, I just love that game. It had everything, horror, just sort of the puzzles. Just there was something just so spot on for me anyway. I know some people, just didn't fall in love with Resident Evil, but as I say, I really, really loved it. The first three on the PlayStation 1, I spent many, many, many a happy an hour playing those games. Anyway, on to my last one, and technically it's not a game, it's a sort of a music maker. It's actually called Music. This one, Music. I had great fun playing this. Used to write many, many little tunes on it.
Now, yeah, I put this one in because I'm a bit of an amateur musician on the side, and I really enjoyed putting songs together on this game. I say a game, but it's technically not a game. But what really interests me about this sort of game is it's like a prelude to the way music is written now on laptops. It was basically the same format. You had your track laid out, and you would just sort of find your sounds and move it into the right area, connect them all together, as you can see I'm doing here, and then you would just press play and see how it all ran together. As I say, I quite enjoy writing little pieces of music, and this intro that I use on my videos, my retro Kev videos, it's only very short, 4 or 5 seconds, but I wrote it using this game, this PS1 game, Music, and it's really quite simple to use. You didn't have to be fantastically musical to use it. If there's any other games for music writing on the PS1, please let me know, but this is the one that I used to use.
So that was music. As I say, I really like me little music making things, and I really enjoyed that one. And as I said there, it's a prelude into the way sort of music is written today on laptops and stuff. Anyway, they were my choices. I mean, everybody's different, and I hope you liked some of my choices. And as I say, always comment PlayStation games that you liked or tick the nostalgic box for you, and make some recommendations because you know what, as long as it's not a really super collectible game, if someone recommends a game that's 150 quid, I'm not going to run out and get it and play it. But if they're all sort of reasonable, I'd always take a chance on the game and play it. Now, before I go, I thought I mentioned my little CRT TV. I sort of managed to get some of the footage through the CRT onto the laptop. I don't know how brilliantly it was and how it came out really, but I was trying to get the feeling of how the games were back then. So I've not used any way of sharpening up the images or anything, and I just did it through the TV there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the little journey, and in the meantime, you take care of yourself. I'll see you later.